This is Dates and Mates with Damona Hoffman. Hello, lovers. Welcome to Dates and Mates. I'm so excited that you are here to share some love advice with me. We talked about divorce month. I'm not gonna keep driving this home. January's divorce month. You know this, but I want you all to have the information. If you feel like you might be in a relationship that's rocky, that could be headed for a breakup, or if you've been through a breakup and you're trying to heal, this is the show for you today. The topic is quitting relationships, how to know when to call it quits, how to handle the idea of starting over, and how to know if you're in a relationship worth saving. And to take this journey with me today, returning to the Dates and Mates show, is Jonathon Aslay. He is a leading midlife dating and relationship coach, and he's the author of Unlocking the Male Mind, Finding Love Online, and Why Men Pull Away. Let's unlock your mind today and give some big smooches to Jonathon Aslay.
Oh, my gosh. You know, it's just so funny. As you were sharing, I realized I filed for divorce in January 15 years ago.
Divorce month.
Yeah,
wow.
I had no idea January was the divorce month.
You're such a cliche.
I know.
But, I mean, the reality is that's when you're taking stock of your life and you want to begin a new year on the right foot, and you've been through the holidays. And so that's when those pressures really begin to mount. So we'll give some advice to the folks at home that may be in that same place and they may want to make that decision, or they may want to take the relationship in a different way. But let's arm them with information. And let's also hit the headlines of the week, including a new dating app that matches you based on your DNA.
Oh my gosh.
The real similarity between all of your exes. Hint, it's not what you think. And Channing Tatum in his single daddom. I tried to do something that was a little rhyme. I don't know if it worked. Did it work? It didn't work. Tatum, forget it. We'll also answer your questions, including how to handle a boyfriend that says your life has too much drama and what to say when you don't want a second date. I know you deal with this with your clients.
Yes, I do.
I know you guys are trying to figure out how to handle that at home. And producer Leah is here.
Hi, guys.
On the ones and twos, ready to do the dish.
Dee's dating dish.
If you're not finding a match through, say, Bumble, Tinder, Match, OkCupid, like maybe the problem is that you're just not genetically compatible. Have you heard of this Fairmore? You're still laughing.
I'm laughing at this. It's like, well,
giving away the.
I just don't want anyone to have my DNA. So let me just start there. I don't want anyone. I'm not going to give my 23andMe or any of my blood or to anyone.
What, are you afraid they're going to find something?
I'm worried. I'm a conspiracy freak, so I'm worried on a bigger picture level. But
okay, put that aside. Wow, we're just really starting this on an upbeat note. Okay, let me tell people how it works. So there's this company called Fairmore for the low price of $29.99. They ship you a DNA kit. You just very romantically swab your cheek. Okay. I would do it on the Facebook live stream, but I don't want to get weird messages. So then you mail it in, and then they look at 11 genes. They sequence 11 genes, and those are the genes that are allegedly linked to attraction to determine biological compatibility. And we're not just talking about the biological compatibility. They also have a profile. So they're optimizing it based on traits and interests, and also the genetic component, and to encourage discourage.
No, I was going to say I could see some value in that, because there is an element of pheromones and that connectivity that happens through biology. So I could see the value in that. I could see that there could be some benefit in that type of program.
I believe in biological compatibility. Yeah. Now, I don't know about pheromones. I read a study by this expert, Richard Doty, who studies smell and taste at the University of Pennsylvania, and he actually told Wired Magazine last year, in regards to pheromone, that pheromones don't exist. He's like, if pheromones existed, we would all be like humping in the streets like other mammals. He said preference for smells are to a large degree learned and subject to cultural differences.
Okay.
But I do think there is something genetically that makes you kind of attract the same people. So they might be onto something.
Yeah, because I heard there was a Harvard study done years ago where they had a bunch of men get all sweaty and, wear a T-shirt for 3 days, and they put the T-shirt into different boxes, and then women
And all the
sniff
women
them,
were repulsed.
If they were repulsed by it, maybe it represented, like, it could be your father figure, and if it was the other end, you had no attraction to it, and then there was a sweet spot. And I don't know. Again, this is anecdotal, but I could see that there could be a connection to smell.
There has to be.
But going back to DNA biologically, there could be some value with this. So more to learn.
Well, get your cheeks a swabbing, people. Yeah. You can check it out. It's called Faramore. But a lot of people think they have a particular type. They always date the same things. But when we look at, say, one of the highest profile weddings of last year, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and then you go look through all of his exes, which he seemed to have a type. He was always going for these cute blondes. And then suddenly here comes Princess Markle. Duchess Markle.
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier, and I've been thinking about the word affinity, and where we feel an instantaneous or a natural liking to someone that has nothing, and it might have nothing to do with our type. And I suspect what happened with him is there was just something different that you just couldn't put into a box. You couldn't put into a type. And he feels fantastic being with her. There's just some element of her that makes her special to him.
There's something different, Jonathan, but there's something the same. According to The Independent, all of his exes that they could see in sandals, Cressida Bonas and Chelsea Davy and Meghan, have the same type of feet.
Oh, my God.
So there's something called Morton's toe, which is an elongated first toe, your big toe. Okay. I know it sounds very sexy, but I know there's some foot fetishists out there, so don't get too creepy on this. But only 20% of the population has it, and all of his major exes have that. So either Prince Harry is a weird foot fetishist. I mean, I don't want to make it, it's not weird. It's not weird. Like, live your life if that's what you're into. But there could be some connection there where maybe it is this biology and you don't even realize there's something underneath it. Yeah. But it was interesting. This article also quoted a recent study from University of California, Davis, and they analyzed 1,000 heterosexual couples and the relationship histories. And they said, despite the rise in dating apps like Tinder, making us feel like we could just date anybody, we actually are still choosing dates from the same pool of people that we work with or went to the same university or live near us. And so we're basically still dating in a pretty homogenous pool.
Yeah.
So maybe that is the reason that people tend to replicate the same kind of partner again and again.
I feel as though, there's one thing when you're approaching it from a desperate perspective, which a lot of people do. They just say yes to everyone, versus people that are, I think, that are coming from their heart-centered space and really feeling a connection for another human being, coming at it from that space of affinity that I talked about. I believe that when we connect with that right person, we just do feel it. We know it. There is that energetic connection between us.
Well said, Jonathon Aslay. One person that seemed to have a connection, Hollywood sweethearts, Channing Tatum and Jenna Dewan. Nay, Tatum. They're definitely not getting back together.
They're calling it quits.
They're calling it quits, yes. To tie it into the theme of today's episode. Yeah. They called it quits a while ago. They both moved on.
Yeah.
Channing is dating Jessie J, who people, like, everybody is saying they look so alike.
Yeah.
Jenna and Jessie. But then they're comparing them, and Jenna and Jessie are not getting involved. It's like the most amicable breakup I've ever seen. So she's like, I'm just happy for Channing and Jessie, and they can live their life. And she's got somebody too. What is that guy's name? Producer Leah. What's Jenna's new boo's name? He's he's a Broadway star, and he's not gay. I don't think. But anyhow, Steve Kazee. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very different type than Channing.
Yeah.
And so Channing this week was talking about how he's dealing with being a single dad and creating an environment for their daughter that still makes her feel like they're they're still a family.
Yeah.
Like he said, he decorated her room in this fairy tale fantasy theme. And then there's pictures of Everly and Jenna and pictures of them going on vacation together and being together as a family. But I really wonder, like, how long is that going to last? Like, how long is that going to be okay? Is Jessie J going to be like, I'm going to take these photos down, when she gets in the space?
I think you have to be a grown-up about this. I'm so tired of people being stuck in their power struggle and their ego, and it's all about me, because I know I shared, I went through a divorce, and my ex and I did a couple Christmases together for the kids, before we began relationships with other people, and we stay connected because that's important for that family unit. I think back to Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher, Bruce Willis. They stayed.
I was like, which breakup? Demi Moore and
no, but I was thinking they really stayed as a family unit.
Yeah.
Many people do that, and it's really healthy for the children. And I know they're both going to go through their struggles as a divorced parent. And I can only speak for myself. My one greatest regret is I really didn't appreciate the time with my children as much because I was so focused on everything else going on in my life.
Well, it's a lot of change, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of change that you're going through. And you feel like I'm putting my children first. I think most parents feel like that, and you're trying to create the environment for them. But then there's all of this other stuff that you're processing. And there's all this other stuff that the kids are processing. And I was reading this article, and they talked about how their daughter Everly has a rigorous schedule with sculpting classes. I don't know how a 5-year-old does sculpting classes. Like, I don't know what they're talking about. Maybe, hopefully, they don't mean like Pilates sculpting, and they mean maybe like art sculpting. But she has sculpting classes. She has ballet. She has horseback riding. And lots of stuff on her agenda. She's quite busy for a 5-year-old. And I will say, my own parents, they split much later. Yeah. I was 17 when they finally broke up, but I kept really busy, and people would ask me, how are you handling your parents' breakup? And I'm like, I'm fine. What do you mean? I'm doing great. I have to go to play practice, and I'm on student government, and I'm doing all of these things. But that I now realize was a coping mechanism just to cover, so I didn't have to really address the fact that my entire world was disintegrating and my family unit was breaking up.
No, I think when you have so many distractions, that doesn't allow you to really deal with what's going on, and it's important to talk about these things. I'll tell you, when I got divorced, my kids were like 5 and 7. Interestingly enough, all their friends' parents were getting divorced, so they kind of took it pretty easily, because this is being so common. And I say that sadly, it's so common. And children are able to adapt different than, say, my generation and a generation before them.
True. What about Channing? What advice do you have as someone that has been through this process, and he's just really at the beginning of it? Yeah. What advice do you have for how he can maintain that bond, and maybe lessons that you learned and things you would pass on to Channing, if you're listening? He might be listening. He works with my husband, actually. A sidebar story before you get. Yeah. So Channing, I was not worried when he announced his divorce, because my husband was working with him, and they were in this office building, and they went down the wrong hallway, and there were all of these single women just women that were like hanging out, and they went down the wrong hallway, and then he was like, oh shoot, because he turned around, and this gaggle of gals were all like, Channing, oh my God, Channing, like chasing him. My husband was like, it was like a movie. You can't even imagine how much women love Channing Tatum. Okay,
I want that.
So he's going to be fine in terms of relationships. He's going to have all that. Yeah, please, you're fine.
Okay.
But what advice do you have for him as a single dad?
This just occurred to me. It's something I did with my children, and there was just a real we had some sacred rituals between us, and I have 2 boys. And one was, we always went to Benihana's as an example. We did it regularly.
It's fun.
Yeah, and
food
that
and
became
entertainment.
but there was certain rituals that were ours, and it was we could look forward to over and over and over again. So definitely create something sacred. And I'm using that as an example. It could be, maybe a trip or something else, but something sacred that it's just the 2 of you. And that's where
Great
you really
advice.
bond.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom. This is just the beginning, because we are talking about quitting relationships. Let me bring in my guest for today. Lynn Marie is a physician, attorney, speaker, author, and lifelong quitter. She's the founder of Quitting by Design, and Lynn Marie is on a mission to help people carve out a successful life through strategic quitting to inform your life's true purpose and path, which led her to write the new book, Quitting by Design. So today, she's talking quitting, relationships. Please give big smooches to Lynn Marie.
Thanks so much for having me.
Lynn Marie Morski. You have so many letters after your name. Lynn Marie Morski, MD, Esquire. All things that you've quit?
Not entirely, but definitely quit parts of them, which is a big part of what I discuss is you don't have to quit the whole thing. And whatever we're talking about, job, relationship, mindset, you can make little strategic quits within bigger areas. That'll make a big difference.
Oh, but people get so overwhelmed with the idea of quitting. And when we're talking about a relationship, especially like in Channing's case, they've been together 8 years. That requires a little bit of forethought and some mindfulness. You can't just walk away from your wife and your responsibilities. So what are the phases in a quit that you need to go through to get yourself organized to make that change?
So there are 5 steps to the strategic quitting process. The first being deciding whether or not there's something that you need to quit, basics. And then the second step is deciding what that thing is. So, okay, I know there's something going on in my relationship, but do I need to quit the whole thing, or is it just one aspect that is causing the friction? Maybe that's just what needs to go. Like if you only fight with your spouse when one of the two of you is driving, don't quit the relationship, get Uber. Right? Very, right? Like just quit driving. And then the third step, which is an important one, is overcoming any of the more esoteric quitting related fears. So this isn't the logistics. We'll get to that in the next step. But these are the fears of like, what are people going to think if I leave this marriage? Or what are people going to think if I leave this job? Or what about all the time or money that I've invested in this getting to this job? Or what about the time I invested in this relationship? And then the next step is preparing the logistics. Like you said, Channing has a family. There are children. And that's kind of the most extreme situation. If you're just seeing somebody for a few months, you don't have much in the way of financial entanglement. That's different. But if you're leaving a job, generally this is pretty big. Like make sure you've got your finances and your health and your relationships in order, because your relationships are a huge part of a quit. They can either be your biggest support system or they can be a big detriment if they're suddenly like, why aren't you spending any time with us? And you're like, well, I'm trying to quit this job and I'm trying to do a side hustle and it's just temporary. But if you don't get them on board ahead of time, that can turn out very differently. And then the 5th step is just enacting the quit in the way that preserves relationships and burns as few bridges as possible.
Like no ghosting.
No ghosting, exactly. That is
but it's so much easier. Oh my God, you gave me 5 steps. It would just be easier not to respond. And it is easier to not respond in some ways, but you have to also, I think, approach it with compassion for the other person. And as you mentioned, the difference between when you have entanglements and financial stakes in the relationship, it's one thing, but a lot of people that come to me are dating, but feel like they've already invested time. Not necessarily money, but I put so much time into this. And there's this feeling of this sunk cost in the relationship, and it would just be easier to stay and not start over because I've already gone down this road. What do you say to that?
Well, I say, what were you spending that time trying to do, right? Okay, say they're in a relationship with person A. And let's just, for the sake of this conversation, say that they are trying to get a monogamous partner for life, right? And if they've spent, say, 3 years with person A, just dating, not entangled, and they're like, okay, it's going south. We've tried counseling. We've tried working it out. It's still not amazing. Well, did you spend those 3 years trying to end up with person A, or did you invest those 3 years in trying to find a lifelong mate? And if you see it in that way, you realize, in that investment, I learned a lot from person A. I learned what works and I learned what doesn't work. And I'm going to keep on that path. It's not a sunk cost. I mean, first off, the whole sunk cost fallacy is people seem to think like, oh, if I stay with that person, I get the time or money back. You don't. Like those 3 years are gone. They're sunk. And you can either use them as a ball and chain to keep you in a relationship that isn't working, which is probably not what you wanted to do with that 3 years. That's not why you invested 3 years. Or you can realize, that's an investment in learning more about myself and the relationship process. And I owe it to myself, since I've already spent 3 years learning, to keep learning and keep growing until I find that relationship that is my lifelong partner.
So wise. I had a client yesterday who, I don't know if you see this, like I do a lot with dating sites and dating apps, and people are really quick to quit a dating app, and they say, "Oh, that one didn't work for me." So we were going through all the apps that she's been on. She's like, "I've been on Match 3 times and I've quit that. I've been on Elite Singles 2 times, I quit that." So we're going through, and I said, "Well, let's talk about the results of each one." And one of the ones that she said was no good, that she quit, she said, "Well, I was in a relationship with somebody for a couple of months." To me, that's not a failure. That means it did work. It just, he wasn't the right one. But if you're learning from each experience and you're growing, then
Well, I got to say something on this one because I think
Go
it's
ahead.
immature.
That's why you're
I'm
here.
sorry, I'm going to call it out. It's immature to, for lack of a better word, blame the site for the problem. Okay, because that's not the issue.
Preach, brother.
It's a dating site is just a portal to meet new people and make new friends. Okay, and a lot of it is garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. So if you're putting in poor effort, if your pictures are crappy, I'm sorry, which most are, and your effort is weak, then you're going to get weak results. But that's not the problem of the app. So don't quit the app. And the other thing I'm tired of, can I just say this? When people quit the city they live in as their complaint, oh my God, there's just no good people in Los Angeles. So I'm like, what the fuck? Excuse me. There's a gazillion people in Los Angeles. Excuse my curse.
I almost did that. Like, I was not enjoying the dating scene in LA for a long time, and I was like, I'm going to apply to grad school. Like, I had a whole scheme.
Really?
Yes, I had gotten letters of recommendation to go to New York and start my life anew, because I was like, every time I go to New York, I meet somebody. So why don't I put myself where the better matches for me are? Now, it just so happened that I ended up meeting my husband before that point, who happens to be from New York. But I look at it as I had gotten clarity on the type of guy that I was looking for, and I didn't need to move cities. Thank God I did not.
You didn't have to quit LA, and
I
thank
didn't
for
have
us
to
you
quit
didn't.
LA. But Lynn Marie, I want to bring you back into this conversation because you talk about facing your fears, confronting your fears, and we all have fears, and sometimes they get bigger and bigger when we think about them than when actually we put them into action and try to overcome them. You realize it was not as big as you thought.
Absolutely.
So you talk about this as being a really critical stage in the quitting process. How do you recommend people move through that?
Well,
fear?
first off, you have to identify what they are afraid of. Sometimes it's just fear of the unknown, right? Sometimes it's fear of, will I ever find somebody if this is a relationship? Okay, will there ever be anybody else? Well, first off, realize that you already haven't found the right person. So it's not like there's definitely the option to find somebody better, because there's an opportunity cost in staying with somebody that's wrong. So you're missing out on the potential of finding some new person. So that's another way to frame that one. But they also may have this thought of like, what are people going to think if I quit? Especially this is big in divorce, divorce month we're talking about. There's a lot more stigma around divorce than there is just, okay, we've been dating 3 months, right? But what I advise in this situation, if that's what they're afraid of, is think about the fact that the other person is going to think about your divorce for such a small period of time. Look at the distraction environment we have today. Scrolling through Instagram, even if you have made an entire post that says, I got divorced, they will continue to scroll in like another 35 seconds right after reading your post. Yeah, exactly.
Frowny face.
Frowny face. Then they keep scrolling, right? Oh, sad. And it keeps like, nobody is going to think about your situation that much aside from the person who you are divorcing and your immediate family, right?
I will admit, I had a friend who a couple of years ago ended a pretty long-term relationship, and she didn't announce it, but she just changed her relationship status. And I don't know whether she intentionally did this or not, but it just popped up as so-and-so is now single. And then, of course, the outpouring of, oh my God, what happened? And then she had to address the elephant in the room. So there must be a way to also manage other people's expectations. You were talking about like the fear of what other people are going to think, but people are going to think.
Well, they are. But think about what all those people were. They were curious kittens. Like that's what they wanted
sure,
to know.
I was
right?
like, girl.
Right.
But in the DM, like not on the page.
Exactly. Because you have some decorum.
Of course. But I'm still a curious kitten.
Right. I am too. Like, we started this and I was like, oh, Channing Tatum got divorced. Like, I didn't know.
You're curious kitten,
been? Right. And so the thing is that people are going to be curious, but there's a difference between being curious and negatively judging, right? Like, oh, I'm very curious that you had a breakup, but I'm not judging whether it's right or wrong, right? And I think we're afraid of the judgment. And you have to realize that of two things. One is that people will think about it just for the amount that they're scrolling. But the second thing is that amount of time that they could possibly think about it, they could either be thinking totally neutrally, they could be thinking possibly negatively, or they could be pretty proud of you, right? Only one of those three options is negative. And it doesn't compare to the fact that you have to live 24/7 in that relationship if you stayed, right? So they think about it for 24 seconds and you live it 24 hours a day. How does that weigh out in your favor to stay? It doesn't. So that's the first thing I think, if that's their big fear. And the other thing is if the fear of the unknown is the big fear, then there's a thing called fear setting that Tim Ferriss talks about in, I think it's Tools of Titans, where you just write out what you're afraid of. Is it, I will never find another person? Or if I leave this relationship, I will be financially struggling. And then put next, okay, how likely is that the outcome? And then if that is the outcome, what would you do? So that you take the unknown scary monster you were talking about and you make a plan for it. You make a plan for the worst possible outcome. And I think that takes a lot of the fear out of it for people to realize, oh, this, it's not even that likely that there's going to be a negative outcome. And if there is, here, I'm prepared.
Yes.
I like that. It's kind of what Byron Katie talks about in Loving What Is. And it's asking, write down all your fears and then go, is it true? And then you go, is it really true? I mean, dig deeper. Because oftentimes those fears are just a surface of just a call for love, both from the person from the outside world and the inside world.
Mm-hmm. And they do get bigger the more we let them grow and fester and don't really address it. People accuse me of being non-romantic because I always talk about planning around love. And so I'm glad that your research supports
Wait,
this.
you're not romantic?
Are you
I
joking?
disagree. You're totally romantic.
No, people are like, oh, a plan to meet your man. Like, I don't want a plan. I want romance. And it's like, do the plan and then the romance can come.
Exactly.
Set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the E word, ego.
Yes.
And ego is something that I think keeps us in a lot of situations longer than we probably should stay. So in your work, when you're talking to people about quitting by design, how do you put the ego in check, and how does it help you save the relationships that are worth saving, or let you know when you've kind of stepped out of line?
Out of line, yes. So many of these quits, be it job, relationship, whatever, the quit behind the quit is often a mindset quit.
Well, wait, the quit behind the quit.
quit. Yeah.
Break that down.
So, for example, if you are in a dream job that society says you should have, right? Okay, I'm the banker and I've got the perfect spouse and I've got the 2.5 kids in the picket fence, and you want to quit any one of those things, that minus the picket fence, you're probably that can probably go. But you're probably, one of the things stopping you is probably, what will society think of my quit? I've checked off all the boxes, and the quit behind the quit may have to be quit thinking that that's the definition of success. Quit accepting society's definition and make your own.
Okay.
And so very often, like if you're in a relationship for many years and you're afraid of leaving that relationship because, oh, what are they going to think of if I'm this age and single? Well, maybe you have to quit the mindset that society gets to dictate at what age you can be single and not single, and whether or not being single is some kind of box, whether it's a curse or whether it's just a sign that, hey, I'm a strong person. I can be out on my own. I'm not going to stay in a codependent relationship or an abusive relationship or a relationship that just doesn't even light me up anymore. So the quit behind the quit is often that whole, okay, taking what society has told me I should want or what is acceptable and getting rid of that mindset. Right?
I like that. So how do you know? How do you know if you're like, if one of our listeners is thinking, well, I might want to stay in this relationship, but I'm not really getting all of my needs met? How do you weigh that and know if your relationship is worth saving? And I'll go to Lynn Marie, but I want to hear your perspective on it as well.
I would do, so in the strategic quitting process, what I always advise in that kind of second step, which is like, what exactly is causing the friction? Journal. Like, okay, what made me feel less than today in my interactions with this person? Or what part of our relationship makes us anxious? Like I talk, if it's just the driving, my goodness, okay, I'm only anxious with him or her in a car. Or I'm only anxious when we have to talk about finances and everything else is right. And if you look at that and it's essentially just these little things that can be changed, kind of superficial on the outside, then probably worth working on saving, making little quits. But if you write down, what are my intentions and goals for life? What are my values? And those don't line up. Or what is my, maybe my love style, my love language, or my interaction or communication style, those don't line up. I would say that's worth taking a different, a much deeper look as to whether or not that should continue.
Okay. Jonathan. Jonathon Aslay.
Well, I have my inner being as my guide. In other words, I operate from feelings. And how I feel about another person makes all the difference. And I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of happy couples, and especially couples like my parents who are married 60 plus years. They all say the same thing. I married my best friend. And bottom line is this when I look at a relationship, do you treat each other like best friends? Because if that's the core of your relationship, you can work out every other detail, like what Lynn Marie just shared. You can work out the car, the finance, and everything else. But if you're not starting from a core place of we are each other's best friends, that's the time to start looking to quitting. If it's not
Dare I dispute the dispute? I don't know if I would call my husband my best friend because I have other best friends. I would call him.
Do you treat each other like your best friends?
I treat him like I would say it's more like we feel like we're the CEOs of a major corporation, Hoffman Enterprises, but we're equal partners in that.
Yeah.
So I always think of honoring his needs almost sometimes before my own.
Yeah.
And I feel like he does the same thing. But sometimes I'm not trying to disagree with you, friend.
Let me just share with you.
Yeah.
Because but that's what friends do for each other.
Yeah.
And I see where you're getting at. You have friends for this kind of thing and a friend for that kind of thing.
That's just
But
what I want
not
to
what I'm
caution people about thinking that their partner has to be their everything.
No.
Because they think I see people that like hold on to the partnership for dear life and want their partner to meet every need that they have, and then if that relationship goes away, they're broken because they were their best friend and their entire, their lover, their confidant, their tennis partner, like, everything. Yeah. So I think it's also about like not putting all of your eggs in. I've been married 12 years. I've been happily married, and hopefully I'll be married for many, many more, maybe like your parents. But I don't have all my eggs in the relationship basket. So there must be something in quitting as well. Where,
so I want to
piggyback
on this for a second. So there's a you, there's a me, and then there's a collective we. You look at your relationship as a collective we.
Yes.
In other words, there's almost as if it's a separate entity, and you invest equally into that entity. That tells me that your relationship is going to work because you're both investing in the we. There is the sovereignty of each of you, but there is the we. And most relationship, one person's putting a lot into the we, and the other person isn't.
Yes.
And they're resenting the other person. There's a lot of other stuff going on, which is a result of specifics. But ultimately coming back and looking at the relationship as a separate entity. And again, I say friendship is the core of it. That's me.
Can we talk about diversifying so you said like identify the thing that's not working. How do you go about if you've identified one element, like maybe it's the passion in the relationship is not working, but they are your best friend. Huh? How about that? So
the tantra.
Well, we know what Jonathan would do, but any advice for how you can kind of create a new plan around one area of quitting and how to begin that dialogue with somebody that you really care about and want to grow with and not completely quit?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first up, the beginning the dialogue, we're all doing the work these days, right? Everybody's trying to improve there's doing self.
No, we're not.
We're not. None of us is doing.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
we're not.
People out there.
Everyone here is
doing the work.
All of my listeners are doing the work because they're listening to this show.
Yes, exactly. That's who I'm talking to, right? And so we're doing the work. We understand, okay, vulnerability is not shameful. We need to be upfront with people, communication styles, et cetera, et cetera. If you're with somebody that type of open communication is going to be some kind of red flag deal breaker, they're going to run away, is that really your person? you want to surround yourself, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. Well, that person who you've chosen as your partner is really big in that circle of 5 people. And if they can't take an honest conversation, that tells you a lot right there. But in that, you have to come to them as vulnerably as possible and do the whole, even though it's not a breakup, do the whole, it's not you, it's me. Like, in this relationship, I'm feeling this. Don't just come at them with a bunch of things that you think they're doing wrong. Like, I get anxious when we're in the car and we start arguing. Or our discussions around money make me a little bit nervous. Put it back to you. All you can control is you, and you're trying to take care of you. So just make that about that and say, I would really appreciate if we could together address this area. And if it's passion, like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit lack of passion in this area. I would really appreciate, first off, hearing your thoughts. If you're feeling the same, maybe they have just been too afraid to share their thoughts, right? And then you've just opened the door. Amazing. If they shy away, again, more information for you to make future decisions based on. But if you say, hey, I really love you and you are my best friend, but there's just one little piece that's missing. I don't want to go find another person. I would just love to work on this with you. And then can we go find, a tantra person or some kind of relation, whatever you think is the next step, a relationship coach, a therapist, whatever. That's how I would approach it.
Thank you. Tell us more about this tantra, please, Jonathan.
I'm not going down that road. No. First off, it's non-sexual, but that's for another conversation.
Okay.
But Google it.
Any thoughts on addressing those difficult conversations?
Oh my
in a
gosh, that is
relationship?
exactly what you should be doing in relationship. It's the we need to talk moment isn't meant to be a confrontation. It's meant to be a conversation with your partner. And again, if you're treating the relationship as a separate entity, as a we, then you can come at it without this angst of it's a power play. It's like, how can we make this us better? And so if there should be no fear of opening up conversation for something that might be really, weighing on you in relationship.
Right. You should be able to have those conversations.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say this because
Yes.
my audience is women. There's a lot of fear that they're going to lose the guy. And actually it's an opportunity for greater intimacy, a greater connection when you share from a vulnerable place. I'm all about sharing your feelings, and the right person cares about what you have to say, because if it's sincere and from the heart, you can never say the wrong thing to the right person.
That was so deep. I'll just add on also to make sure that you approach it from a point of view of listening. Because I think a lot of times we start these conversations and we're like, here's my thesis and let me make all these points. Right, Lynn Marie?
Yes.
And then we forget, the other person has a stake in this too and has a perspective on what's happening that may be different from our own. So I like to go into those difficult conversations with a mindset of listening. Like,
Absolutely.
listen 70% of the time, talk 30%. And then you'll both feel like, if you both feel like you were listening 70% of the time, then you both are at least being heard, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Lynn Marie, physician, attorney, speaker, author. Quitting by Design. You have a podcast. You have a new book, Quitting by Design. What else? Where else can we follow you? What else can we do with you? How can we quit better?
You can quit better by checking out Quit Happens. That's easy. That's the podcast. It's on all the podcast places. And Quitting by Design is how to find me on Instagram and Facebook. If you really like quitting and you want to hear more about it, then I have a Facebook group called Quitopia.
Love
the
it.
humble home for all things strategic quitting. All of my podcast episodes are also on YouTube, as is I do a Quit of the Week every week, Facebook Live, and put that up there. So we tackle a different topic about quitting every week. And if you want to work with me one-on-one or in a group setting, I've got all kinds of coaching options that you can find on my website as well, which is quittingbydesign.com.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and quitting a relationship. Jonathon's going to stick around, and we are going to address your questions after this break. So don't go anywhere. There's more Dates and Mates coming right up. It's the beginning of the year, and if you slacked on your New Year's resolution already to get fit and sexy for 2019, I have an easy solution to get you back on track. Beachbody On Demand. And now fans of Dates and Mates can get a 14-day free trial on the annual Beachbody memberships. So you can stream all of Beachbody's fitness programs like 21 Day Fix, PiYo, Insanity, Size, T25, which I love, P90X, which I love, P90X3, which I love the most. And if you hate sweaty, stinky gyms like I do, if you don't have any cute workout clothes to wear, by the way, I need some. If you have any recommendations, let me know which workout clothes you're wearing. If you don't have time to work out, Beachbody is going to fix all that because you can just work out at home on your time, on your schedule, anywhere, on the go, Beachbody on demand. And as a Dates and Mates listener, you can get your 14 days free to try it out, totally risk-free. You just visit datesandmates.com and click the Beachbody banner to get started. Welcome back to Dates and Mates. I am here still with Jonathon Aslay. He is a midlife date.
Can I just say it? Midlife dating and relationship coach.
Midlife dating and relationship coach. Yeah. But you're so much more than even that.
Yes.
So I want to have your insights for our listeners because people be sending me their questions. And if you're listening now and you have a dating and relationship question you want on the show, you can just email me, Damona at Damona Hoffman, or DM me, nothing dirty, at Damona Hoffman, or give us a call at 424-246-6255. So we have a question here. This one's a little bit complex.
Okay.
And we're talking about...
Do I need to take notes?
Maybe. We're talking about breakups and relationships and second relationships. So this person says, after my divorce, I reconnected with someone I knew back in high school. We've only been dating for a few months and things were going great until my personal life got hectic. My son is not dealing well with my divorce from his dad, and he got in some trouble. I've been going kind of crazy, making sure that I get my son into the right rehab and putting my own life back together. It's been, in caps, absolutely insane. My current boyfriend, however, has not been the most supportive during this. At one point, he mentioned that my family drama was too much for him, and he was hoping for something more casual. The C word. Yeah. Casual. Is this a red flag, or should I cut him a break? After all, we've only been together a few months.
Oh, I have a lot to say.
I know. That's why I'm kicking it off to you.
Okay, where do we begin? So I'm going to start with the relationship itself because they're dating. And dating is just really a process of getting to know one another. So in this particular case, the question I would have is, do you have this idea that it's going to go the distance kind of thing, or are you just in the phase of getting to know one another? And it's difficult to get to know another human being when you've got, and I don't want to use the word drama, but you have stuff going on in your life, and this other person might not.
Right.
So I think it's important just to talk about what's going on, share your feelings, and allow the other person to really sit with their own feelings. Are they capable enough to invest in this relationship? Because it might be that they cannot, but it might be that they just need to feel safer with you if there is, I think she used the word insane, right?
She said absolutely insane.
Absolutely
in
insane.
Caps.
That wouldn't feel safe to me. If someone else's life feels insane, I, as the other person, don't feel safe. And I believe there's maybe even an expectation on her part that he has to protect her from all this insanity. Mm-hmm. And you're still in the getting to know you phase. How can he really step up if he doesn't even feel safe with you?
Yes, I totally agree with you. And I'd like to add that he told you what relationship he was looking for. So he said the C word, something more casual. Yeah. And to me, that says that you've kind of been making, I don't want to say demands of him, but you've been requiring more of him than he had really bargained for. So I think this is a time for her to really check in and address her feelings on the relationship and what is she really looking for right now. Yeah. Now, it sounds like she's just getting out of this marriage. So this might not be time for a long-term relationship. So maybe something casual is a better fit for you right now and him. Yeah. But it's like, what positions are you putting him in to involve him in your life and in these things that are going on before the relationship has really gotten to that point?
Yeah, I would think it's better to, in this particular case, let go of the expectation of the destination and just feel the ride right now with each other. There isn't, many people are just so hung up on we got to get to the destination, whatever that is, marriage, partnership, whatever that looks like. And it's also part of enjoying the ride, especially if you have a lot of, I don't want to use the word turmoil, chaos, whatever as she described, but because she does have to take care of that in her life. But also, you know what? You're allowed to have fun too. So let go of the expectations and see how it goes.
Maybe this guy can be your fun This
Yeah.
can be your
Tran-
break from all of the
Well, most people go
insanity.
through what's called a transition relationship anyway.
Yeah. Say,
But
oh,
that's another
honey, you're just
conversation.
my transition relationship.
Yeah.
Don't even
He'll
worry
start
about
coming
it.
closer to you if you just say that.
Right? Push them away, and then they come running towards you.
Exactly.
Okay, speaking of pushing people away, this actually comes from my client, RH. She says, I've had 3 dates with a guy that I'm starting to really like, but I went out with someone else yesterday, and I didn't feel that spark. Should I thank this guy for the date, but say I'm going to focus on someone else I've been seeing, or wait till he messages me, or just let it go?
Oh,
Ghosting
gosh.
is never. Let's just take that off, right? Ghosting.
What do you mean ghosting?
Like just let it go
so if
and
he
not.
doesn't respond and she doesn't. Well, they've gone on. No, this is one date.
So there's one guy she went on
No, I
3
got
dates
that.
with, and
But
that's going well.
you-
This guy she had one
one
date
date.
with, and she is like, "Oh, I definitely want to date the guy that I've
Yeah.
been
So
3
let's
dates with."
just look at this for a second. If he does nothing, she does nothing. They're both in the same place, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he does something and says, "Hey, I'd like to see you again," I think the honorable thing to do is say, "Hey, I really appreciate the time we had together. You seem like a fantastic guy. I'm investing somewhere else." I mean, or in your own language, write that. Or she can take the preemptive approach and just say that.
That's the question. Should she
Well, there's
preemptively
no should.
say,
There's no should. It's only been
"Thanks
one
for,"
date.
Does she need to thank him for dinner?
Well, I think that's the hospitable thing to do is thank someone. If they treated for dinner, absolutely. Thank them.
Okay, now I have like compound questions.
Okay.
So-
Well, that's what I was hoping we'd dissect this.
So you, as the man, would prefer to get just a thank you. Now, if she's not interested in the second date, just a thank you. Thank you. I had a nice time. Period.
Okay, if she didn't already thank him, then I would follow up with a thank you.
Like in
And-
person?
No,
Or
not in person. No, but
You have to-
look, we're
she
going to do
send a
everything text
letter?
messages.
She sent a
A
telegram?
handwritten- she should do it with,
She didn't send him a
with
box
2
of
cans
flowers?
and a string. No, she can send a thank you, and she can do a thank you, no thank you text message.
Okay. But doesn't that send him the message that maybe she's
Well, I
wanting
would
to?
have preferred that if she went out with someone 3 times, she not meet someone else. I'm a believer of investing at one person at a time. I am not into.
Oh, here we go.
I know. I'm
Here we
not
go.
into the whole concept of circular dating or duty dating or any of that kind of stuff. I believe in investing in one person at a time, and that works if you're both doing the same thing. That's a lot healthier.
I want to agree with you, but
You want to, but you're going to say all the reasons, and we can go through all the reasons why a lot of people say you shouldn't do that. But I'll tell you why you should do that, because that's the heart-centered place of approaching relationships, from a place of integrity, of generosity, of genuine. I mean, there's so much when you invest. But by the way, I'm also about being intentional. Hey, I'm investing time in you. Are you in the same place as me?
I agree with you. Once you're at that point. But
You
I
can
don't,
do that.
But I think there are a lot of people
after the second date. If
want to run before they've
And
walked.
those aren't people that are going to be good candidates anyway. Anyone who wants to run, chances are they're hoping for some sort of unicorn in some way that's going to solve their relationship problems.
Oh, that's you.
Me?
You're going to solve everybody's relationship problems.
I was thinking I kind of do that myself, though. Run away.
No, you're going to solve their relationship problems at JonathanAslay.com. We'll also link to Jonathan's page in the show notes, as well as Quitting by Design and Lynn Marie Morski's page and her community, so you can figure out how you can strategically quit and how you can get into a new relationship and get some dating coaching advice from Jonathan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. You're so wonderful.
You're so wonderful.
Aw.
We're
going to do a love fest in a moment.
I have so much fun doing the show that the time just runs, and then I look at the clock and I'm like, we didn't even cover everything I wanted to cover. But you'll come back next week. We'll do more dates and mates. And next week's episode is that our Valentine's Day episode, producer Leah? Oh my God, it's our Valentine's Day episode. So we have Dr. Diana Kirshner and a panel of singles who will be here talking about how to overcome your single shame and how to date effectively in today's world with all of the changing methods and the changing communication. We'll set you all straight next week. I hope you enjoyed episode 244 of Dates and Mates. Remember, you can get your question answered on a future show. Just email me, Damona at DamonaHoffman.com or DM me. And by the way, when you're at DamonaHoffman.com, why not pick up some of our free goodies and sign up for the newsletter, get in the community so that you can find out about future episodes, future events, and lots of fun happenings here at Dates and Mates. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again next week. Until then, I wish you happy dating.